Welcome to Online Chats. Today, my guest is Jorey Chernett from Authentic 4D. They are a service that when I saw them, I could see how this particular service could rock the claims world. They utilize films in a whole new way that if you are unaware of their services, you will definitely want to listen to the very end. Hi, Jorey. Welcome. How are you?
Doing well, thanks, Diane.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your services and what it is that you do for the claims departments?
We help them assess what's a legitimate injury claim, what's a claim that's truly legitimate, acute in nature, traumatically induced versus, one that's clearly pre-existing chronic degenerative. So it's really about improving risk management, faster claims resolution, reducing claim cycle time, and helping them figure out earlier in the process what's legitimate versus what might be chronic degenerative, to essentially streamline treatment protocols for workers' comp claims, help folks return to work healthier, faster, et cetera, and at the same time understand which claims might be overreaching in nature and are worth defending. So in short, really empowering our clients to make better decisions more confidently.
So can you explain to us what the 4D category is?
So the 4D category combines two components. The first is a quick, affordable, subspecialized radiological review of the films. So it's 48 hours on average across the industry. It's a quick review of the films by someone that has 2 years of fellowship training, subspecialized expertise, and can convey, going back to my previous point, is this a legitimate injury claim or is this something that's chronic, degenerative, pre-existing? 80% of the time, any fellowship trained subspecialized radiologist can ascertain from the images, is it real or not? The second component of the 4D category is reserved for claims that are clearly chronic, degenerative, exaggerated in nature, anything that falls to that respective category. And it combines a written report from the radiologist with 90 to 120 second visual tour, full motion of the actual MRI with arrows, annotations to make it really easy for a layperson that doesn't necessarily have the requisite 8 or 10 years of medical training to understand. So the visual can be used to influence treatment decisions in terms of communication with the physician. It can be used to help a claimant truly understand their respective condition. Sometimes claimants are being told, for example, in the workers' comp space that you're injured, when in reality, if they can see their own image and actually see how it compares against maybe a normal MRI of someone in their same age bracket, same corresponding anatomy, but in a, again, normal state versus what a real injury would look like if it truly existed, and have this juxtaposition where you can compare, contrast. It's really a way of breaking through from a communication perspective, leveling the playing field and making it easier to communicate with the claimant itself. And then, of course, it can also be used in any sort of litigation setting as well.
I find it really compelling. So can you tell us if this is admissible in court?
It's absolutely 100% admissible. Now, that being said, one out of about every 4,000 or so cases that we touch ends up going the distance. And I like to think that's the case in terms of such low percentages going the distance, largely because the visual tends to work. It substantially improves the probability of getting a more economic as well as more timely resolution of the particular claim, because the visuals typically only reserved or used for situations where it's clear-cut chronic degenerative or exaggerated injury that's being evaluated.
So can you tell us what the pillars are in 4D?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really look at the service and trying to address a void in the marketplace instead of maybe waiting a couple months for an IME and the associated costs. One thing we try to address is speed, and that's one of the 4 tenets or pillars that we try to address. So it's a 48-hour turnaround time. So speed is one. Affordability is the second. We charge a flat $200 fee for reviewing all of the films associated with the particular claim. And then the third one is objectivity. This is an industry, as we all know, it's not uncommon to have a hired gun, meaning a physician that derives a meaningful percentage of their respective income from this industry. So we use real doctors in the sense that 95+% of their work is coming from outside of this industry in a clinical setting. These are folks that have, really strong, deep pedigree And objectivity is important. They read films on a blinded basis. They don't know who they're reading for, among other things. So objectivity being very critical. And then the fourth one is the visual sense. So we know, we talked about this before, but most humans are visual learners. And when you think about a claim where you might need to defend it, where it's a claimant that said, hey, I was asymptomatic before, and now I'm symptomatic. And invariably, if you're an adjuster, claims professional, you're resigned to using words on paper. And it's a battle of the experts. Like I mentioned before, showing the actual claimant's MRI and comparing it to an anonymous normal, an anonymous injured scan really improves the probability of getting a more timely, more efficient resolution, economic resolution of the particular claim. So it's really speed, affordability, objectivity, and the visual sense really being the four key things that we focus on in terms of the value proposition and helping our clients.
Well, what type of injuries can be judged by this method?
Yeah, it's really any alleged injury. So spines, necks, knees, shoulders represents about 90% of what we see. But mild traumatic brain injuries, that's maybe only 1.5%, 2%. But it could be a hip, it could be an ankle. It's any part of the body. And as far as imagery goes, of course, MRIs are the most common thing we see, but it could be a CT scan, it could be an X-ray, even ultrasounds occasionally that we'll see. So anything is fair game.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit about the results that you're getting? Because I know they're fantastic, and I want the people watching this to understand how important service like yours is in order to help shut down a claim or pay what is truly owed to the injured worker or claimant.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about results, we take first as much pride in helping confirm legitimate injuries as we do in identifying those that are overreaching. So, the first thing I want to talk about in terms of results is helping adjusters have the confidence to know that it's a legitimate injury claim. So if we're talking about workers' comp, an example of a result would be validating that the original radiology report is something that is truly legitimate. So maybe instead of waiting a couple months for an IME and the costs associated with that, this is something because of the 48-hour turnaround time associated with our service, where the claims professional in that situation can direct more specialized treatment earlier in the process and help that employee return to work and return to health faster. The same would go for if you're thinking about an auto or general liability claim where we're confirming a legitimate injury. It could be pre-suit, it could be early or any phase of litigation. And by confirming a real injury earlier, again, there's those potential time savings, cost savings with additional layers into the process that you can now avoid and resolve earlier. And also, I'd say boosting productivity is part of the result, right? Because if you're a claims professional or an attorney and you can confirm a claim, a legitimate injury early in the process, you can avoid litigation and other potential expenses. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, that's where the ROI can be even more significant because if you have a claim that could be 5, 6, or 7 figures, and it could be a pre-existing injury claim, it could be the situation I mentioned before, asymptomatic, now symptomatic, but the scan itself is completely normal or chronic or degenerative or pre-existing, and they're claiming maybe something that's exacerbated. Using the visual combined with a written report from the subspecialized radiologist, it's quick, it's affordable, and it's really a way to mitigate or minimize exposure or liability on an exaggerated claim. So risk management, the ROI in that respect, can be as much as 1,000 times. Across the board, maybe to summarize, when we talk about results, on average, our clients see at minimum, for every $1 spent on our service, at least $20 saved, if not substantially more.
That is a fantastic return on investment. I really feel that if it's used early on in this process, that we're able to shut down a claim or move the claim forward based off of that evidence because it's so compelling. Well, I'd like to thank you very, very much for being my guest today. Can you give our audience your contact information should they decide they would like to contact you and get more information regarding your services?
Absolutely, Diane. Yeah, folks can feel free to reach me at my email, which is my first name, Jorey, Jorey, at authentic4d.com.
Well, this is a wrap for this edition, and we will see you at the next Onine Chats.